So I bought a Nikon Z30 and I'll tell you more about it after we unbox it. I managed to save some money by getting my Nikon Z30 in open box condition from B&H for just under $600. Now in the box you'll find some instruction manuals and warranty papers, the camera itself and the camera strap. Now, the first thing you realize with the Nikon Z30 is the build quality. This camera is well built. The camera is a bit on the weightier side for its size. The rubberized feel is excellent as well. So why did I choose the Nikon Z30 or Z30 if you're American? Well, it was the perfect camera for my workflow. The other options that I had was the Canon M50 Mark II. I didn't choose that one because of the 4K 30 frames per second crop. I didn't want any crop. And the same reason is why I didn't even choose the other option, which was the Sony ZVE10. The Sony ZVE10 had a lot of things going for it. I particularly liked the fact that you could shoot in log, right? But as well, the 4K there had a crop. So that's why I ditched that option. And the ZVE10 was just a bit more expensive. I opted for the Nikon Z30 for the fact that you can actually get the full sensor readout when you're shooting 4K 30 frames per second. Plus, the Nikon Z30 also shoots 1080p up to 120 frames per second. So if you're looking for that buttery smooth slow motion, this is your option. That's the reason why I got this. So the question is the Nikon Z30 a good camera for you? For me, it ended up boiling down to the price. The ZVE10 was slightly more expensive and the Z30 was more affordable option. Now, the Nikon Z30 was announced over a year ago with content creators in mind. And some of those features are the reason why I bought it. The camera features a fully articulating screen, which is perfect for when you're vlogging or recording solo. The camera also features a tally light to make sure that you're recording. The arrangement of the buttons is quite simplified and I like it. There's a toggle which can make you switch between photo and video modes. Now, what's interesting about this mode is that you can switch between video and photo settings. For example, I can set a different ISO for my video and a different ISO for my photo settings, and switching in between won't affect any settings. So that is actually a nice touch. That's the reason why I ended up choosing the camera. But that's not all. There are also some programmable buttons at the front. There's a dedicated video record button at the top, as well as a toggle to switch between different recording modes, manual, auto, and others. You can also save your own custom settings on the programmable modes available, indicated by U1, U2, or U3. On the top of the Nikon Z30, there's an inbuilt speaker and a microphone, which has a left and right channel, as well as a hot shoe mount, which you can use to attach other peripherals. The inbuilt microphone on the Nikon Z30 is surprisingly good. Now, I've used a few inbuilt mics, and I wouldn't advise you to use inbuilt mics, but with the Nikon Z30, you'll be pretty surprised. Here's a demonstration. So, in case you're wondering what the audio sounds like on the Nikon Z30, this is what the audio sounds like. I'm actually outdoor, as you can see, and this is how the internal microphone sounds like. The Z30 also comes with a host of useful features inside as well. For example, focus peaking, a histogram, diffraction compensation, and more. So the Nikon Z30 is touted as one of the best Nikon budget cameras with very good autofocus. Sadly for me, I did not buy a Nikon lens to test this out, or a lens with autofocus to test this out. I'm actually using a manual lens from 7 Artisans at 35mm to be exact. But when I do eventually get a Nikon lens, I'll test the autofocus out. The Nikon Z30 menu is quite easy to get used to. My last camera was a Canon 650D, but I had no issue getting used to the Nikon Z30 menu. Now, no camera is perfect, and the Nikon Z30 is no exception. The camera lacks in-body image stabilization, or in short, IBIS, right? So if you're going to be working with the Nikon Z30, I would advise you to invest in a gimbal. Or even if you try to get, I'm sure if you try to get Nikon VR lenses, that should actually help you out. But it is actually quite bad, especially if you're shooting in higher frame rates like 60 frames or 120 frames per second. So get a gimbal or look elsewhere if you're looking for a camera with in-body image stabilization. Now, the second issue that I found with the Nikon Z30 is that the camera tends to heat up, especially if you're shooting in 4K 30. I don't know why it does that, but I noticed that every time that I plug a USB-C directly to the camera, it tends to heat up very fast. So you might want to look out for that issue. Yeah, but if you're shooting in lower frame rates or lower resolutions, 1080p, 120, there's no issue. But the issue comes up when you're shooting 4K 30. So look out for that as well. All right, now when it comes to battery life, I actually like the battery life on the Nikon Z30, right? If I'm shooting in 4K, I get up to close to an hour of usage. But if I'm shooting in 1080p, even at 120 frames, I get close to 2 hours of usage. And that's pretty good in my opinion. Even charging the camera doesn't take a lot of time. I managed to charge up to 100% in under an hour. But then I'll be using a fast charger. I'm not sure if you're using a regular charger, if you get the same results. But in terms of battery life, the camera is excellent. Now, the other reason why I bought the Nikon Z30 has to do with the ability to be able to stream in 4K. This camera can stream in 4K, but I wouldn't advise that. You can also stream in 1080p up to 60 frames per second, which is the option that I would want to choose. So in the near future, I think I'll be getting into streaming. If that's something that you'd like, let me know in the comment section down below. Now, the Nikon Z30 can give you a clean HDMI out. One other reason why I like it is that it has inbuilt Wi-Fi, and you can be able to transfer files from your camera to your phone or your computer using an app called SnapBridge. Now, the beauty about this app is that you can also use it as a secondary monitor. That means you can use your phone as a secondary monitor and be able to change a few settings as you're recording it. This is particularly useful when you're recording solo. So I think that's a plus for the Nikon Z30 camera. So the color science, yeah, this is an area which you need to get used to. If you're moving from a Canon ecosystem to a Nikon ecosystem, you might have a challenge. The colors are a bit, I don't know, it just gets to you. You know, you're so used to the colors from Canon being pretty good out of the camera. Well, with this one, you might need to make a few changes. But people say that Nikon colors are a bit more natural. So I don't know, maybe you might end up liking the color science. But I've noticed that even when you're shooting in the flat profile, if you try to push the image in grading, it quickly breaks down because it's only in 8-bit. So yeah, if you're looking for maybe a camera with footage that you can be able to grade, you might need to look elsewhere. Let's talk about the footage that you can expect to get from the Nikon Z30, right? When it comes to video, like I said, it shoots up to 4K 30, and the footage is actually quite good, quite detailed, particularly if you couple it with a very good lens. Photos as well, they come out looking very natural. Here are a few samples for you to look at. So like I said, no camera is perfect, but for my workflow, the Nikon Z30 is actually a pretty good camera, and I'm sure I'll be using it for quite a while. I won't be changing cameras anytime soon. Would I recommend this camera to you? Like I said, if your workflow is more studio based, or maybe you want to get into vlogging, the Nikon Z30 is a good camera for you. Now, currently the Nikon Z30 is retailing just under $700, and I'll leave a few links below if you intend to purchase the camera. If this video was helpful to you, please give it a thumbs up. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.